Yeah, one of these chairs or someplace else.
Outside the door. I just wanted to beat you guys in the fun. How's everybody doing today? It's like seriously the third Monday of the week. Anybody else feeling like that? Wow. All right. Is it gonna be 47 degrees tomorrow, is what I saw?
Is it
It's
really?
supposed to be like super chilly tomorrow.
Yeah, the change is here by the sounds of it, yeah.
I was gonna do my yard work, get rid of some garden stuff tomorrow.
Let's start. It's something else, but
With the coda.
yeah, cool.
Yeah. Actually, there's 40% chance of rain or something tomorrow.
Yeah. It was raining this morning when we were here early. It was raining.
It is 4 o'clock. I'll call the October extension meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? There is a misstep in the minutes from what I've read. Laugh at me.
No.
Where we stated where the fair board has the ability to sell alcohol, it was added in a motion. My remembrance and my knowledge anyhow, that it included the VIP site, the minutes did not depict that. I guess I would entertain a motion to approve with that correction. Motion's made, is there a second? Seconded by Lois, is there any further questions or comments? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Is there anything for public comment today? Anybody want to speak in public comment? None being heard, then we move on. Rich?
I think I'm wearing out my welcome here, I'm not sure. There's no need to go through the report, because you guys can all read that. There is some changes, that have occurred since I completed the report, that I've seen I don't wanna say a significant increase, but an increase in the amount of juveniles coming across my desk. It's kind of refreshing for a change to spend the last couple of days working on teen traffic court rather than drug court. So I won't beat that. I got a referral from the DA's office, one from Human Services, and then picked up 2 out of intake court. So it's been fairly busy. What I wanted to go over a little bit today, and this I picked up on one of Mr. Jacobs' suggestions from this morning. I went, yeah, occasionally he does have a good idea. So I thought I'd expound upon that a little bit. We come in with the facts and figures, but I don't really ever give you guys a perspective on what happens when these juveniles come in. For example, if I pick up something from the court or from the DA's office, what have you, they've been charged with something relatively minor, traffic offenses or minor disorderly conduct or something. What happens is we complete a registration form. In most cases, they pay the $35 fee right away at the treasurer's office. Then we go into my office and we do an intake form, and that's where I sit down and visit with them a little bit and say, why the heck did you get in this predicament? What led you to get in here? And it takes probably half an hour or so, and we visit, we fill out a form, and we'll set a teen court date, and that's generally the 2nd or 4th Tuesday of the month, or in the case of teen traffic, whatever day I can convince Charmaine to open up the senior news center for me so I can get some volunteers in. when they come into the teen court, if it's a regular teen court day, they will, and a parent will sit down with a bunch of kids their own age, 13 through 18 as well. And they not only explain the nature of their offense, but the kids ask them quite a bit about what their house is like, if they have brothers and sisters, are they working, are they involved in sports, and just to kind of get a feel as to, what they're like as individuals. So then they determine and look at the offense, how did you get in this predicament, why did you do what you did, and so on and so forth. And it's not to determine guilt or innocence, they've already admitted that in court. And what it is to decide is what is the appropriate learning facility for them not to do it again. And generally that consists in the teenagers will all talk among themselves, and there's so much depends on the attitude of the respondent that comes in and how honest they believe they are. And these kids are pretty sharp, the kids on the panel, you know, they go, oh, he was lying through his teeth, or there's a lie he didn't tell us, or so on and so forth. And they'll determine what the appropriate sanctions are, and they can range, generally they include some type of community service, perhaps some type of research project. One of the more unique ones that I ever found, it was on a traffic offense, and the young man blew this stop sign right here in front of the courthouse with the officer in the squad car sitting right there. So there's sanctions on that particular violation, other than doing an absolutely stupid ticket, but on that particular violation, they assigned him to go sit at Quick Trip for 2 hours and record every traffic violation he saw going through that stop sign in the course of 2 hours. And then prepare a report on that and determine what the risks were in that particular intersection. One of the most unique things there, he saw a semi pull that stop sign, he guessed at about 40 miles an hour. So, you know, that's kind of an eye-opening, and it focuses on the learning process. Now, they have to get whatever projects they have, or whatever community serves, they have to get that done within 60 days. Get the report back to me, get the community service log back to me, and then I file a notice with the clerk of courts. With the exception of underage alcohol, they complete all their projects, the charge gets dismissed, and that's their one opportunity. You know, if 2 months later they go out and do a similar thing, well, it's too bad, so sad, they bite the bullet on that one. The exception is underage alcohol. The charge doesn't go away, but by going through the teen court process, they're allowed to keep their driver's license. And they have a reduced fine, I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 1/3 of what the normal fine would be, if I'm not mistaken on that. So, and they would have to look at that. So I just wanted to kind of take a couple minutes and enlighten you guys a little bit of what the process were that these kids have to go through to get through the teen court. Did anybody have any questions?
How does that change, like with truancy or something like that?
Truancy is mostly handled by human services, and they take care of most of it. When I get truants, it's kind of, they've gone and gone and gone, and they've dealt with them for a considerable period of time. And every truant that I've had so far has been within 2 months of their senior graduation. And one of two things have happened with them. They're either really bright kids that have been straight A students that go, I don't have to go to school anymore, I'm not gonna worry about it. Well, it's pretty hard to motivate them to go back to school. The other extreme I got is kids that have taken the lazy way out and not completed all their work, and basically they're completing 2 years of high school in 2 months. And then it's a matter of, I kinda sit around and babysit them and call them every day, did you get this done, did you get that done, and so far, every single one of them that I've had, and I haven't had any in a while, have been successful. But otherwise, human services takes care of the initial truancy back. And having said that, Jerry, that's an issue, because if these kids aren't in school, they're out doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
How many reoffenders do you see come back around?
Pardon me?
How many reoffenders do you see come back around?
That's a good question, and I watch the court docket pretty closely. I haven't had very many, and I'm saying out of all of them I've had in going 3.5 years now, it's probably been about 3 or 4 up until this last court docket. I saw 2 of the kids, they're over 18 now, so it's, you know, they're kinda out of the system. But one kid on a traffic violation, very similar to the one he had a year ago, when he was 17, and, the other one, a girl must have been involved in a traffic accident, because hers was an inattentive driving ticket coming through. So, as far as the more serious offenses, then I had another one, on vaping, and he has been through the process twice subsequent to the teen court, so he didn't pick up anything in the teen court process, so.
Do you deal with underage drinking?
Yep, yeah, I do too.
One of the big initiatives about truancy is in the CJCC, the Youth Justice Subcommittee, which Rich and Judge and myself and you know, a bunch of partners talk about the, you know, we rewrote, Judge Barner rewrote the ordinance so that we could make it accurate for timely, penalties or, you know, corrective action plans and those kinds of things. So truancy is a big deal in our county, and you just try to combat it as best you can, but it's a humongous deal.
And truth be known, mostly what I deal with are kids just making mistakes and screwing up. Truancy, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but truancy is more of a parent problem than it is a kid problem as well.
Especially younger kids,
Yeah.
getting in the earliest intervention. But then there's also, truancy court initiatives that are occurring that, tend to capture the attention a little greater, because there's a little more court accountability with that. But it's still the same, you're trying to modify behavior.
And the problem we talked about in that truancy court, when you get these younger kids coming to truancy court and what have you, they become a little too accustomed to being in court, and by the time they get to a little bit older, it doesn't have that fear factor that it should have. You know, they come in and talk to the judge every week for a long, long time, and sometimes it's kinda nice, you know, most of us when we were growing up, we had kind of a fear factor. If we ended up getting in trouble and taken home to our parents, it was much more scary than anything that could have happened in the justice system. And I think truancy wise, and I think Jeremy, can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but we're looking at alternatives before they end up going to court on a weekly or a bi-monthly basis, so that they're not exposed to that court, so they're, for one thing, they're not walking into the courthouse, and for another thing, they still retain that fear factor of coming in and talking to the judge. So you don't get that, yeah, attitude. Anything else?
Appreciate the explanation, Rich.
Thank you.
Drug court report. Monthly report, third year budget, and out-of-county travel.
Can I go first?
Sure.
Okay, so, my inaugural visit to the Justice Youth Extension Committee, thanks for having me, out-of-county travel. A couple months ago, county board approved that human services director would oversee the, treatment court coordinator position. As a result, we were made aware of the fact that the WATCP, the statewide, treatment court practice, has a conference. That conference, registration was due by September 30th, and so I worked with Judge Barna to make sure that we get a slot there, and so depending on what the treatment court trajectory was gonna be, so we got that all set up. I included in your packet, I believe, an out-of-county travel for 2 folks, Jeremy Jacobs, or designee, Drew Shapiro, who is currently the CJCC coordinator, but probably has an interest in doing the LTE position that you're gonna consider here for the core reporting. And so I sent you an email kinda late today. I had to update this based on the conference agenda, and I'll hand this around so you can see it, is that there's $290 for each of us, to attend the conference. The lodging fees are 2 nights, it starts, it's the 10th, 11th, and 12th, but the 10th you go down, cause the 11th starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and so there's 2 nights of lodging. There's mileage, Drew will travel from Eau Claire where he's from, I'll take a county vehicle from here, so there's mileage reimbursement, you'll be able to see that. all of those costs will come out of the TAG grant, allocations. And then, my wage will be paid for by Human Services, and Drew's will come still out of the CJCC, pocket. So, that's the Otter County travel for that.
They have it.
We all got one.
Okay, you get the updated one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, you guys are the greatest. Okay, so really, it's just that simple. It's my responsibility to help support this, treatment court coordinator within the team of drug court. So I'm gonna go next week and take it all in. And then obviously, based on Monday's events, we're working toward, the recruitment and having a coordinator back on board. So that process will continue. So I think that was the portion from Howard County travel that I had.
Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve, county travel. Motion's made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, who wants to fight over this? Lois Goodson. Is there any further questions or comments on the motion on the floor? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye. Opposed, same sign.
Awesome, thank you.
Motion is approved. Connie, have you got one?
You have the big one.
I have one.
I have one
I
other.
assume,
Oops, sorry.
I assume Connie on this side for extension. That says Health and Human Services Board.
I think it's the same.
Do both of your committees have to approve, Jeremy, or?
So I was just gonna say that, is that, Human Services Board won't have, it's on my agenda to talk about the fact that I'm attending as the oversight for the coordinator, and so
They can just
they'll do
sign
that
the
next week.
opposite side.
We just,
If you wanna send that, they can do that. The only other component to that is I've been to finance. If you look at the financial procedures manual for the county, on page 18, chapter 7, there is just a quick blurb that says, normally one person's expenses per meeting/training is all that shall be reimbursed. If more than one person attends the same meeting from a department, justification shall be made to the oversight committee and the finance committee. So I've been to the finance committee to talk about this, and they had a really good plan, is that I will send a summary from Human Services, or in this case, send it to Jamie. Jamie will update the finance committee, because in this case, we have more than one person go to the same training. And so, while that's in the financial procedures manual, there was good discussion about, let's just have it be an updated, that shouldn't be a barrier to sending people to training. Examples would be, there's multiple tracks at a training, one person can't be in all those little breakout sessions, and so it makes total sense to have that. So, but it's worth mentioning because it is a part of our financial procedures manual. So,
thank you.
yeah, cool.
Are you gonna get the drug court assignment?
Cause I didn't make any notes.
Oh.
You're more notes.
Budget review, who wants to divulge into,
For the drug court?
yeah,
Okay, so, I mean, we're way under budget, under the grant, because we've gone since April without a coordinator, so, there aren't any other expenses that are out of the ordinary. I think one of the things that we are looking at is, maybe doing a budget modification for rental for participants who are being reintegrated after treatment, inpatient treatment. But we haven't even sent in a budget modification request to the grantors yet, and it has to be approved from them. So, other than that, and, you know, I don't know, I guess we're October, I don't know if we would really even sign a lease until next year's budget, which we would include in the new grant. So, way under budget.
I think I asked you this last month, but the contracted services, that's kind of a hit or miss one, so it just kind of varies depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, so the contracted services portion is generally the treatment providers. And I'm trying to think of what else. The lab testing, the lab we contract with to do the evidence testing. She's a treatment provider. So, yeah, treatment providers, and then that would also be inpatient treatment under that, because now, the total cost of an inpatient treatment, when they're on medical assistance, the treatment portion's covered by medical assistance, but the room and board is not, and that's under the contracted services too. So those are the only three things I can think of that would be under that. We currently have 3 participants. Accepting new referrals has been kind of on hold until we could get a coordinator, so, now that we're moving forward, we expect that to change. So there isn't anything else out of the ordinary.
In contracted services, I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for Jeremy. But on that, can any of that be done with the counselors we have in-house?
It's a good question. We don't
We don't
have any
have any.
counselors in-house. So lots of facilities, lots of human service departments, lots of them. Some of them have what's called a DHS 75 licensed clinic, which means that they have licensed therapists doing therapy sessions and other activities embedded within their human services department generally. As a result, we don't have that. And so all of our services, we rely on the providers that we have in the community, as well as then the CCS providers that come in as a part of that realm. So in the grand scheme of things, having in-house providers is something that we've talked about a little bit, is that, to become DHS 75 licensed is a big deal. You now are at Division of Quality Assurance. You have a lot of things that you have to check a lot of boxes in. And so, but that would then allow you to have somebody in-house that could do many different caveats of treatment related stuff. Then you start getting into mental health, ALDA, those therapists don't grow on trees, and so it's hard to extract them into like a county level system. So that's the short answer.
So when we were talking the other night about different drug court programs being under DHHS, and when they said the bigger counties who have their own clinics, that's what they're referring to. When they have their own in-house stuff, that's where you'll see the treatment courts being really under the DHHS. So even trying to get providers to contract with us, with the treatment court, excuse me, if they're not part of their own clinic, we can't just do that, even if they're licensed. It's really quite complicated. Because we have some retired counselors here who are AODA certified, but they have to then be under the license of a clinical setting to do it. That's the 75, whatever he said. So yeah, it gets to be, I don't know, makes my head hurt, but.
And as soon as you have like Judge Barna said, as soon as you have a scenario where somebody goes to treatment and the services is paid for by Medicaid, you cannot supplant those medical assistance dollars. It's the same thing that happens when we send folks over to like Aurora to participate in a group. We can't have Medicaid bill for the individual in the group setting and then give them another $20 out of some other pot of money, because now you're supplanting Medicaid. And so you have to, it's very important, it's very, very wiggly, is that you have to take a look at whatever the Medicaid rate is for those services. So we try to get creative and navigate around it, and then sometimes you get your hands slapped and say, don't do that again. But more importantly, what Judge is saying, if you go to residential treatment, okay, and you're gonna pay for somebody in residential treatment, one of the biggest things that happened lately is folks with Medicaid, the services are paid for, so that saves taxpayer dollars, in the sense, and Medicaid is still a Medicaid program, a taxpayer funded program. However, from a county standpoint, that frees up a ton of other money, because we're only paying the room and board, which is generally under $100 per day, generally around $75 a day. And so that lots of times becomes straight levy allocations, because you can't supplant with other grant dollars,
So an inpatient stay of 28 days went from 25,000 to 3,000. But we have to pay under the contracted service. That's a fairly new development, the year before last, yeah.
So those are all things that we work in that system where it's, you're charged with certain grant dollars, have to go for certain things, but then some of them that comes along where Medicaid pays that services rate, and it's like, okay, now I have to be creative with those dollars to try to capture something else from the service. If you wanna come up and look at charts and graphs, swing on up. I can show you all kinds of stuff in my office about how we have to spend on substance abuse block grant dollars, and rules we
Yep.
go with that.
Jerry, I did wanna touch too a little bit on, you know, cause we talked about looking into a rental of some type of facility, to take care of these people after they come out of inpatient. That's been a significant, problem with our relapses after we do get somebody out of inpatient, is historically, they've gone back in the exact environment that they came from, back in the same family group, back in the same, boyfriend, girlfriend situation, whatever it happens to be, and they're right back in the environment with users again. So that's why we're exploring the possibility of renting, and if we take them and put them in, like a motel or something like that, for a transition period to get back on their feet, that's, even though, some of the motels have made us some pretty good deals, it's still an expensive proposition for which we could probably, rent our own establishment at a much cheaper rate for the year rather than a couple of weeks in a motel, so.
I know building.
Your place?
Well, retiring, you got my building. I
Okay.
rented out to, never mind, I'm just kidding.
Drug court name change to Rusk County Recovery Court.
Yeah, so the big, push lately, like, I guess everything else in the world, is names are changing, and if somebody thinks that a term could possibly be offensive or whatever, so calling drug courts is not what they're doing anymore, and they strongly encouraged us to change our name, actually to treatment court. This is how I try to refer to it. We did talk about the Rusk County Treatment Court. The reason we went with Recovery Court is because we like to use acronyms, and RCTC already exists as Rusk County Transit Commission, and so to avoid confusion, we would like Rusk County Recovery Court, RCRC.
Any questions from the committee on that?
It's just fun with the world. Everything's offensive.
Yeah.
As you could say, thank you, Madison.
Yeah.
So you could say, thank you, Madison.
Yeah, well, Madison and I don't get along.
Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the new name.
Motion's been made to approve renaming drug court to Rusk County Recovery Court. Is there a second? Second by Jonathan. Is there any further questions? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. A Justice Youth and Extension member appointee on the Rusk County Recovery Court Oversight Committee. Somebody interested?
I need to know more information about it, I guess. I'm
Mr. Ruff,
interested,
thank you
but
for-
the thing that conflicts is my business, so I have to kinda have more information.
Well, retire.
Information, like
Yes,
how
well, let
often,
me-
like how often we meet
We're in
and
the
things
same
like
boat.
that.
Yeah,
How often, probably what time, I would imagine.
time and how often, I'm very interested, but
Good.
my business, I work out of town a lot.
Sure. Well, so we have, it's been a quarterly thing lately. It's been more monthly because we had more issues to discuss. Right now, we have meetings set for the end of October and the beginning of November, just because we have a consensus building training that we're doing.
Sure.
Beyond that November date, we don't have any dates, so we could figure that out. We do have a lot of policies in the handbook and contract that need to be revised, and so, we can't wait too long, but we could work around that. Typically, it's my schedule that's the hard thing to do. So it's usually over a lunch hour that we do them, but are there certain days that work better for you?
No.
Okay.
I fly by the seat of my pants. so to
Well,
speak, but-
John, maybe for your schedule, would it work better for you if it fell on the same day that you had like forestry in the afternoon or extension in the afternoon?
I was just gonna say that, it would be
Okay.
nice if it could fall on one of the committees I'm already on, because I'll already be here.
Okay,
So,
What are you on, forestry and?
forestry, highway, and,
Extension.
Extension.
and this one, so if we could do something prior to this meeting, maybe,
Yeah,
we could figure that
I
out.
mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to be counted in, I'll make it work somehow.
Even if we zoomed you in,
Yeah,
we could virtually in if you can't make it or something comes up.
Well, I try and make everything in person, nothing's better than being in person.
I agree.
I'm, as far as I'm concerned,
Well, I think we could
I'm gonna
figure
do it.
it out around your
I'm
schedule.
gonna do it either way. So, yeah, I'm going to.
Is there a motion to appoint John and Caleb to, unless somebody else is interested,
Yeah.
and you wanna vote it off?
I'll make a motion on John Caleb.
Motion made and seconded, so I guess you stuck your foot in your mouth, John.
I'm not regretting it, I feel good about it.
Motion's made. Motion's made and seconded to appoint John Caleb to the, Rusk County Recovery Court Oversight Committee. Is there any questions or any objections? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye. Opposed? John, I guess you got it.
Thank you. Who did you give this to?
Okay, go.
Lois sign it too?
Yeah.
Got it.
Supposed to.
Or does it go to
I
Jerry?
can take it, cause then I gotta get my committee to sign.
So, somebody will be in touch with you
Yeah,
then?
Email, stuff.
I'll have Carrie, the judicial assistant, send out, future dates and then we'll see it, so I'll look at forestry and maybe with thinking this one, right there.
Both of them, Judge, are in the afternoon.
Okay,
Forestry is at 3, and you adjusted the extension to 4.
okay,
Right, highway.
is forestry on a Wednesday, or,
Yes, forestry is typically the third Wednesday.
okay, and then this is the first, so either the first or the third Wednesday then. Okay, I'll look at those, and then, yeah, I'll send you an email or I'll have Carrie do that with,
Yeah, let's
Which
get,
dates?
let's try and see if we can work together on the dates again, I'm pretty interested, I wanna make this, meeting, so.
yeah, good, I'm glad to hear it, thank you for volunteering, and I just wanna say, they're open meetings to anybody, so everybody on the committee can come to them, so. Okay, yep, I'll be in touch, thanks.
Approve a recovery court gift card policy.
So you have that is a grant requirement. We do a lot with gift cards for incentives for people in the treatment court. With gift cards, I think there's probably a lot of room for abuse, so the grantors really just came back, and we have to do quarterly reporting, so now each quarter, we have to submit, an accounting of those gift cards. There wasn't really a lot of oversight, we had a lot of oversight within the county, with finance department checking them and Crystal keeping track. But this is a grant requirement, they provided the language, we tweaked it with Ashley's help last week at the oversight committee, so it's a formality to have it, just outlines how we do things.
Motion to approve. Motion made by Lois, is there a second? Second by Jonathan, is there any further questions on a motion on the floor? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Confidentiality agreements for team members.
So the next two, are really similar, one is, for team members, the other is for observers. When we meet, our team meets on Wednesdays, and we discuss participants, those are closed meetings, there's because we're talking about treatment, mental health, those kinds of things. And although people can come, we have to have them sign the agreement and the order, so they can't, disclose any of that. So team members sign confidentiality agreements yearly, observers would sign every time they come to observe.
Is that something that you need our approval and motion in that, or is that standard procedure that you're just notifying us of?
Well, your oversight, so I think everything that we change or do with our policies and procedures should be approved by you guys because you're oversight, so we're asking for that. It is standard procedure we do, but we did just change the format a little bit recently, so.
Is there a copy of that in here?
Yeah, it's in the back of the packet there. That's the 4-H stuff.
Like Judge said, there's two. There's two versions of that, just because of
The
the.
front side is the observed agreement, and then the back side is the vendor confidentiality agreement. On the, These are pretty standard agreements, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and in fact, they'll be added to the local court rules that I do for the court system too, because it's an order that I sign saying, that they can't disclose anything. If they do, they're subject to contempt.
Penalty of law. So I guess what we'll look for motion to approve these two.
Yeah, I think together is
I'll
fine.
make a motion to approve the observers agreement and the members confidentiality agreement.
I'll second. Motion's made by Mr. Kayla, second by Mr. Undershoots. Any questions on the agreements? Not being heard, all in favor, signify by aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. LTE data entry position.
Well, we have the job description first.
Whoops, oh, I'm sorry,
Sure.
my bad. That was part of reading it, but-
Our job description for the treatment court coordinator, recovery court coordinator, was really quite old, back to when they were doing the point system. And it was really very minimal, and we thought that it really needed to spell out more of the functions. So last week at the oversight committee, we went over that. We had Ashley there. What we didn't have was the benefit of the new HR person so I'm hoping you had a chance to look it over. So it was approved by the oversight committee for Ashley to add whatever requirements for the county to have on those job descriptions, but, did we provide the old job description or no? Probably not.
No, just the new one. I would say that none of the nuts and bolts of the job description changed. It was just putting it in the new format and
A little
cleaning
more
up.
detailed.
Yeah.
I think the review of the job description the conversation was robust. It's a grade 11 on the scale at $24.57. And I believe I didn't, but I looked at the JDQ quick, and I don't think anything fundamentally changed in reference to how that was scaled for that position. So it's worth knowing that nothing really changed there.
Are there any questions on the job description as presented?
This is a normal for the coordinator, as far as job.
Those duties, oh yeah, it could have been a lot longer, we did kind of,
That's a pretty big plate for it.
it's a tough job.
My question to that would be, a reflection of wage. That's gonna be an issue.
Well, it did go through the whole, I mean, you know, like was mentioned, the nuts and bolts of it didn't change, so there were more broad terms in the older job description, and what we did was bullet point more details to be specific, so that, you know, when the coordinator looks at it, they know exactly, and so more specific wording than
Break
being
down
so
the
broad.
job, Right,
Yeah.
that's what you're saying.
Cause then you can,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
you can pick up the coordinator, the key thing that we talked about at the advisory was, the coordinator can pick that up, and this is what I'm supposed to do. The point factor was sketchy, it was minimal, it was kinda some super vague. This is the thing you can pick up and say, hey, I might not do this all the time, but this is my scope of my duty. And so,
I was questioning, somebody steps up to the table, they know exactly what they're getting into here.
that's what.
And John, the team-
Like that.
The team went through that too, and that's pretty much what we ironed out correctively of all of us that were on the team also, so, you know, it's a pretty accurate reflection of the duty.
Okay.
So, what, in reference to, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask John, your concern though is with all that plateful, is that the right grade? That the wage should be higher maybe, or to attract
I don't wanna step out of bounds here, but do you want me to speak frank?
Sure,
If that was me, there'd be no way I'd touch it for that kind of money.
that's what we, yeah.
So, pardon?
Actually, this,
What?
the,
I know you wouldn't hire me, because I wouldn't even think about it.
actually, you say the nuts and bolts are basically the same, so as far as the Carlson Detman study is concerned, that's where they graded that JDQ,
Mm-hmm.
and there's really not,
I can print out the JDQs for personnel tomorrow and we can comb through it in a little more detail, but in my opinion, it didn't change that significantly, no.
And I can honestly tell you that I met with Carlson Detman during, the drug court coordinator position was not included in the wage study to begin with, I asked that it be. And so that, when I was in the district attorney's office and they gave us the opportunity to talk to them about each individual thing, that's when they added it. And that's when I went through everything with them, and my concern at the time afterwards was we weren't reflecting things, because I thought that in between, we had taken away some financial responsibility from that position. When I looked back on it, I was not correct, because I had actually filed an appeal on the Carlson Detman. But when I did look back on it, the discussion with Carlson Detman was all accurate, related to the functions that are in this one now. So it would be the same if they looked at it again.
And so from a grade standpoint, grade 11, social service worker, registered nurse, office coordinator, which is at the sheriff's office, nutrition services, CPA, which is a competent professional authority in our public health department, judicial assistant, registered and probate clerk, IT specialist, finance accountant 3, environmental health specialist, and drug court coordinator are all in that same grouping. So again, when that process brought that back to say, this is what we think where they fit, you're talking about other things that are pretty technical. Grade 11 is pretty technical from what those folks are being asked to do.
And it's comparable to other treatment court coordinators that when I called around, yeah.
Okay.
is there any other questions?
Well, I guess I'm-
Job description.
Yes, you'll take the job then,
Am I correct, Ashley, this needs to go to personnel yet?
Yep, it's on the agenda for tomorrow and then.
Okay, so this committee then, the motion would be to forward this job description to personnel. Someone's make that.
I'll make a motion to pass that personal. Job description for the court coordinator.
Motion is made, is there a second? Second by Jonathan. Is there any further questions or comments on the motion before us or on this job description? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Excuse me. Data entry position, limited term employment data entry position.
Do you want me to talk about that? Or do you wanna talk about it?
We had gone through the approval of getting that before. You probably will recall, it was, we wanted to hire people to monitor drug testing, a male and a female. Also, part of that job description was, you know, while they're sitting there, if they're working for 2 hours, they could help with data entry and things like that. So that's what it's under. The purpose for the approval now is specifically to have approval to have somebody work on data entry. One of the biggest requirements under our grant is called CORE, C-O-R-E. That's their data, collection, software. We are grossly behind without a coordinator, so, since April, it is a lot of information. Every drug test, every visit, every treatment thing, every sanction, every gift card. There's so much information that has to be put in. And so while we're waiting to hire a coordinator, it would be nice to be able to have somebody to start entering that data into the system.
This would be out of the TAG grant, I assume?
We have money to cover it, yes. Yes.
How many,
Or we just.
part-time or how many hours? So what are you looking at?
Honestly, right now, we could keep them busy full-time until it's done, but I think, do you wanna comment anymore?
I would think probably about 20 hours a week, and it would be a special project clear to whoever applies that once the data is entered or we have a coordinator, the position will no longer exist.
I am really, full-time would be, I don't know if I'd wanna do that, somebody to just sit there all day long until it's in, it's, you know, it's pretty tedious, so we'll take what we can get.
So I guess, how would you throw this out there, full-time until the coordinator is hired?
No, it's gonna have to be limited to what, Ashley, less than 29 hours a week?
That's part-time, yes, less than 23 hours is WRS, but it's an LTE, so I don't think any of that would really come into play.
If they're already doing something else,
Right, that's where we have to be careful. If they're a current employee who wants to pick up more hours.
then that's 23 would be our cap.
And then what?
We would want them to go up and combine in 23 hours.
Well, it's on, WRS is also on an annual, so we would just need to make sure we kept that person under 1,200 hours
1,200?
1,200.
for the year.
1,200 combined hours.
And those are things that, you know, between me and Judge and the finance office, we can keep an eye on.
And I would assume, as advertised, it'll be advertised under the stipulation that when this is done, the position is
Correct.
terminated.
It'll be advertised as a special project.
And it is a duty of the coordinator, so if once there's a coordinator, then that coordinator takes on the core entry. But we did, I think the resolution for the LTE, you will see that was kept to so many hours within a year, but only if grant funded too. So, yeah,
Cause you've already taken this through in reference to the position, right?
there's a
That's all.
resolution already approved,
That's
yeah.
it. This is just getting somebody in there to do it in a short interim period. True FTE.
Any further questions?
So you have to word it, it would have to be short term.
LTE is,
Yeah.
LTE,
Oh, it
yes,
is, okay,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I think it'll be clear that it's a limited term employment. Specific.
I'll make a motion to approve the LTE data entry position till either the project's done or December 31st of 2023, whoever comes first.
Motion.
So I'm making a motion to approve it, and it'll either be done when the project is done or December 31st of 2023, whoever comes first. Cause part of this deal is that we didn't know if we had money in the budget, so now it's the end of the year, we know we have money in the budget, but next year we don't know if we have money in the budget, so.
Well, and if there's a coordinator position,
Hopefully.
so,
Coordinator, I'm more.
there's a motion on the floor. Second by, you seconded, Judd?
Yes, sir.
Is there any further questions or comments on the motion on the floor? same sign. Motion carries. 2023 Recovery Court Coordinator Conference attendance.
That's what Jeremy covered.
Yeah, so just from an out-of-town standpoint, the TAD grant allocations will cover, the request is to allow two of us to go. Drew from that standpoint, and then myself as the coordinator, supervisor. And so that corresponds with the out-of-town trip. The costs are very simple, it's $290 each, $204.30 each for hotel. I've got a little more mileage, but I'll use a county car, and so that'll be tracked back to the budget of that rate. And Drew is likely to take his own vehicle from Eau Claire, so he'll have less miles at a 25-cent rate.
Ashley, I know you have to leave for another meeting. Is there anything farther down that you wanna speak on before you do, or
No.
need to? Okay.
Just the, Drew, for the mentoring, so there is no CJCC section, and so are we covering that now under the drug court? I know, I didn't know what to do.
I would say yes, if the intent is that he'll be doing the reporting.
No,
You're
for
talking about the
the
mentoring to
mentoring
another county.
for the CJCC.
Oh, wouldn't that hit the grant budget, the Marshfield grant budget?
Yeah, but we still have to have the approval for him to do it, right? So we didn't have, I mean, if this is the committee that
Yes,
approves it.
yeah.
Okay, so we didn't, and then, so your comment was we can do it under the drug court, but it's not, I mean, CJCC is affiliated with the drug court, but it's
Mhm.
not. This is what we want to do.
Yeah, so I would say, so I think I'm getting what you're saying. So CJCC coordinator was hired through a Marshfield Clinic grant. CJCC is its own council, but it really has no authority according to our ordinances. So Drew, the CJCC coordinator, is gonna head out of town for some training and mentoring. Well, it just makes sense to me that Justice Youth Extension should approve that out-of-county travel because we have a CJCC, because we accepted the TAG grant. If you disagree, we can bring it to finance or something.
I think you're probably right, but when is this?
Well, he hasn't set it up yet. Did he email it to you? Cause he didn't email it to me.
The out-of-county travel
The
form?
form, did he fill it out and give it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, and do
Did
you
that
guys
make it
have
to
that?
Did that make it to the packet, Connie? I can go print it for you guys before I leave.
Okay. What it is essentially is mileage, he'll be going to the Chippewa, Criminal Justice Coordinating Office, in Chippewa, and then also in Eau Claire. So it would be, mileage and then maybe a lunch on those days, 2 separate days. He hasn't even scheduled it because we wanted to get the approval.
And to be honest with you, I have a slight problem approving it without it being on the agenda.
Yeah, and that's why I have asked, and so, and it was Ashley came back and said we can put it under the drug court portion because technically CJCC doesn't have oversight because they didn't really do anything. Drew's position is the Marshfield grant and it just started. And the CJCC, we have the CJCC as a requirement of our TAG grant. We have to have that in order to get the grant money. And so I think the thought was that this is under the drug court, it's gonna be paid for out of the Marshfield Clinic grant, not the TAD grant.
The other thing is the miles will probably be pretty minimal because he lives in Eau Claire. And if he's going to Chippewa, there's probably not a ton of miles unless he's here going there and back, but he'll probably.
Well,
coordinate it.
he's moving to
Oh, he's
Ladysmith, so it'll be
okay.
Ladysmith, the Chippewa and Ladysmith, Eau Claire,
Still.
yeah. So technically, it is under the drug court.
Basically by default, because CJCC is a non-authority committee.
Yes, but under this group is oversight because this group is oversight for the drug court,
It's confusing, but you're right.
Yeah, I get it. he's waiting for approval then before he sets up the dates.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, this is a 1-year grant, and he's already been working for a month, so if we put it off for another month, this is where he's gonna get the nuts and bolts of his training to get going, so. I mean, if we have to wait, we can wait, but I mean, I don't know if there's any other concession for like the chair to approve
Is
something.
there, was Ashley that put something for us to sign then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did a form, I think she's gonna bring that in.
I guess I would entertain a motion to approve, the out-of-county travel for every 2 days.
Are you doing the coverage for it?
We already did that.
No, cause it's on there.
What was the number on that, Terry?
Yeah, what was the total?
I don't think I've seen that, or if we did.
What's that, on what?
Well, that-
The cost.
How much is?
For Drews?
Yes.
Total is $51 on that one, $59 on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve.
What's that? Motion's been made, is there a second? Caleb? Is there any further questions? Meeting purpose, mentoring with the Chippewa Falls CJCC team for training. And the other one, the $59 one is the Eau Claire CJCC team to learn for training, so.
What's the date?
There is no date because he hasn't set it up.
He will do it this month, though, in October.
Okay. So motion is made and seconded. Is there any further questions or comments? None being heard, all in favor, signify by aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Josh, what's Drew's last name?
Shapil, Chepil.
That every truck clerk? Is it covered for?
Yep.
Same one?
What's that? Yeah, no. Then we want back to you then, Connie?
Maybe with Jeremy or?
Yeah, I don't know what you guys do with, I don't know what you guys do with.
They have to accompany your time sheet.
Okay. Yeah, so, production,
Ash.
what you put them in already. Yeah.
The one for Drew's travel, it'll go to Ashley, yeah.
I can take it back to my.
Okay. Everybody, thank you for coming to work today, appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Short and sweet. Yeah, it's early. Yeah, it's early. Oh, it's just not handed? When did that happen?
It's a southpaw.
Holy, man, it's just when I thought I knew somebody. I knew you.
Ellen, I guess you're up, if you wanna speak up a little closer so everybody can hear you.
Nothing much has changed since I was here last month. I think we're plowing through though a few, more cases on the backlog. That's been because Carl's getting up to speed, and you can see budget, nothing much has changed. We have some increases just in regards to special prosecution. We expect that to go away because we're not adding any more cases to that column, really, because even if Carl has a conflict, he has very few. I can take those on, so it's not a conflict for the office. So I think we'll work through that, but we have higher than expected revenues in terms of our deferred program. I think the only other thing that I wanna bring up is ask permission for out-of-county travel for next month. And well, I guess end of October is our spec conference. So, I'll go this time, we alternate usually to get our CLEs, to keep our law licenses. The state will reimburse us, part of that mileage, and so we'll only be requesting from this committee the difference of what the state doesn't, give us in that mileage, and this time it's at the asphalt in Elkhart Lake, so it's about 250 miles one way.
Connie, if you got something there first.
I don't think so. Did you send anything?
No, it'll be a reimbursement for next, when after we do it and we send in the state form, then we'll come here with the actual, mileage form that we end up having. I asked Crystal if I need to bring something this time, she said we usually do it after the fact, but I asked permission ahead of time.
Yeah, we have a minute, so then we can always get the signature.
I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the out-of-county travel.
Approve the out-of-county travel.
Motion's made by Lois. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Undershoots. Is there any further questions or comments or questions of Ellen where on this? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Guess you're pretty old, Ellen.
Thank you.
Circuit court. Anybody? No.
Yeah, I'm here, Lori couldn't come, so she sent the email, but you have the documents, the only thing to report, so it was, she has out-of-county travel, for the Stanley Correctional Institute, and that is a meeting with the Records Department, and there's a graduation program that the court was invited to. I am riding along with her, but it's actually a vacation day for me, and I'm actually heading down that way, so I'm not part of any expense for out of county, but, that's what it is, total $26, you should have that.
That's a big one.
And you've got the paper to sign for that, do you?
Oh, did it not get emailed?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
but you have a.
oh, you need one to actually
Yeah,
sign,
cause
yeah.
she's got the,
This
thank
is
you.
what I printed off. Is
You
that
got that
right?
lecture,
And then, she did provide, the numbers on the court case filings, so you have those from the court case filings are way
Judge,
down.
hang on a minute.
Okay,
Is there, would entertain a motion to approve the out-of-county travel for Lori Gorsinger and the Prince?
You got that lecture,
I'll second John's motion.
Is there any further questions or comments on the out-of-county travel? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
alright,
please-
sorry
please
about
continue.
that, jumping the gun. So case filings, you'll see, she does a good job on the spreadsheet to show, I mean, case filings are way down, in pretty much every category, which was surprising to me, but I don't know what the state trend is right now. Otherwise, the other is the fines and fees collection. As of the end of September, almost $95,000. And so easily they'll reach 100,000 on the collections by the end of the year. Last year was, just under 70,000. So Brooke, Clark has been working on that, and I'll tell you my experience because these fees generate from the court fees that are assessed. So I often talk to his DA about how those are generated from the DA's office, but under the courts, we can charge all the fees and assess all the fees we want in court, but collecting them is a whole nother demon, and I'm floored by the work that Lori and Brooke have done in collecting. I think if you checked over the history over the years on what's collected out of the circuit court, this is probably blowing it out of the water, which a portion of that stays within the county then, so amazing job what they're doing. That's all I have. Things are on schedule with budget.
Okay, thank you. Jermaine, you might as well.
Alright. I believe in your packet you have the,
Excuse me, can I just ask, do I take those forms in and Lori attaches
Yeah,
them?
both of these folks.
Yeah.
Judge?
Alright, thank you.
Thank you very much.
in your packet is the quarterly report. That huh?
Look what she did, yeah, she got it
Oh, well, if you look back there, eventually, it'll be pretty. Otherwise, it is National 4-H Week, this week. The enrollments are coming in, there's new trainings that leaders have to do, and she also sent out a newsletter. So that is for extension, unless there's any questions.
Is there any questions for Charmaine on what was brought forth? Other than the one I know hanging on your mind, because I know Charmaine can't answer that.
How many out of the 100 people are enrolled?
What this is talking about is, the Falcon 4-Hers, 0 of them are enrolled. It is not a charted group so far.
Can I ask why?
Well, if she was here, she could tell us.
She would, either she or whoever is in charge of this club has to go through the chartering process. Get an EIN number, all of
And
that stuff.
when is the deadline on that for these kids to actually be?
Well, re-enrollment is November 1st, but, if there really is no enrollment deadline unless you wanna show at the 2024 fair, then they have to be in by, April 1st. But you can enroll in 4-H anytime.
But is there any deadline or any time frame on this one actually getting chartered? Or can that happen at any?
That can happen anytime,
It
yes. Other groups that are already established need to be done. There's a deadline for that, but new clubs, no.
Other questions on extension office business?
There's been a lot of activity, with record book judging and stuff like that. Typically at the end of an enrollment period is when we do our celebrations for leaders, achievements of kids, things like that. That's on our newsletter. October 21st at the Minor Theater, there's gonna be a red carpet event. I guess we're combining those events and doing that there, so, I'll be whipping out a lot of certificates and things like that, and Diane goes and does the shopping for cool gifts, like if you're in poultry, you usually get some chicken feed and a water, and, you know, just cool stuff like that, so, yeah, so there has been, some activity.
Thank you for bringing that in. Trails End.
The picnic in the Pines was Sunday, September 24th. It was rainy, but not a washout. Many thanks to James Call for organizing the event. And that morning, he borrowed 2 canopies so the kids' pumpkin face painting could be held outside and all stay dry. And that was hosted by the Kiwanis. Kettle fire was kindled so s'mores could be enjoyed by the kids, and that was donated and done with by the Lions Club. Chris Cole's presentation was very informative, and a snake and an owl were exhibited. Nick Stadnick gave a drone demonstration. There were many questions asked and much interest in the information the audience received. The dining hall was festively decorated, starring pumpkins donated by Holly's Last Stand. And we want to thank all who supported the fundraiser and by volunteering their time and their talents.
So I would assume by the sounds of that, would consider it a success.
Well, it wasn't that well attended because it was so rainy, and people didn't know, I suppose, if we were gonna keep on doing it or not, but I don't know, did we know how many were there or anything?
No, I was in the kitchen the whole time, so I didn't take any, attendance or anything. Alright.
That would have been the perfect time for the drone, you follow the drone pictures of everyone afterwards, you can count the attendance.
She's not listening to you, John.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm trying to pull totals, cause I figure you're gonna wanna know how much we made. One of the, board members made, a very delicious pulled pork, dinner, that those that were there thoroughly enjoyed, and then the fair board, I brought some that night to the fair board, and then, I had a lunch on Monday, cause we had tons of food left over, we planned for 100, and we didn't have that many. He thought that we maybe served 60, but a lot of that's kids with hot dogs and, not necessarily, a sandwich, so, anyway, food sales, we took in $346. The raffle, I have some pictures to show. The raffle took in $425, so there was no expense. Lois donated some super cool items. We had lots of raffle items. Merchandise sales, we took in $236, and I just wanna show, some of our new merchandise. This is our Trails End hoodie, in indigo blue. I have a variety of sizes. I have short sleeved, long sleeved, Hunter Forest, shirts, some super cool mugs. If you remember last year's, they were blue, now they're wider and bigger. So I have those. And then we have some youth t-shirts, variety of sizes, and youth hoodies. So, those are all for sale. So I did order, cause I didn't know how many, were gonna come and blah, 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 but whatever we didn't sell, which is a lot, we'll go to Gateway Gourmet and they sell it there for us, so, and then we get, they charge us a percentage, but, then every month we get a check from that. So it might take, a couple years to recoup that cost, but that is all out of our non-lapsing fund. Any merchandise sales, fundraising, any of that, the numbers I just rattled off, that all goes into our non-lapsing, so it doesn't touch our budget at all. So we made a little over $1,000, but I don't know profit because I don't have the bill for the food. So I can report more on that, but, yeah, it was, a very rainy day.
Would you suspect that your attendance was down due to the weather?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And we didn't have a band. Unfortunately, when the race was supposed to start that morning, major downpour, thunder, lightning. So they had to cancel the race, but that is going to happen this Sunday, I believe. The Blue Hills Running Club and all of that, but it was a success and we have some very strong supporters that are neighbors of Trails End, and they'll come in a snowstorm, just very good. So,
Did you get a speeding ticket to get here?
No, I didn't.
Alright, so here's some of the, we had, some pumpkin decorating. These are some of the raffle items. We were set for a full house for Chris. I don't have any event pictures, is all ahead of time, but, so there was a huge, canopy that Brian Mickelson, let us use, but some super fabulous raffle items. merchandise sales, food, that's in back. Jim, Lathrop, you approved him last month, he's the new, he's the one that made the food, and we had yummy s'mores, so, you know, it was nice. We made over 3,000 last year, but we had a band and, we had a dessert auction, we had, a literal raffle, not just, you know, the bucket raffle that we had, so, you know.
And everything was just at the last minute, we all had switched roles and kick in because, Cece retiring and she really ran it the year before, so we were on a short leash there.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't do it on the trail on this weekend, well, for the, Leave It to Rusk weekend like we had the last time where we probably got more people because of them looking for things to do. So we had to have it, because there was a wedding scheduled at Trails End, we lost that weekend.
And the date for Leave It to Rusk was changed, and they cannot guarantee me the date for 2024 and 2025 because I'm already booking out that far for weekends, so we're just gonna have to wing it every year, I guess, we're gonna continue to do this, I guess. But, we did advertise that, you know, if we make a profit, that it will go towards converting the old juniper cabin, into a museum. There's a lot of history at Trails End, and so we've been talking about doing that for years. So we're gonna start working on that. Hopefully have that ready. Okay, so, caretaker, James is not here, but, we've had, an unfortunate, thing happen to our swinging bridge. I was alerted by our Facebook page that somebody went walking and there was a tree down over it. So, the tree did some damage, so we did file an insurance claim, and we closed the bridge. So you can see there. What?
Insurance will buy us a new bridge.
You don't wanna know what it was insured for. But anyway, the insurance company said, get some estimates for repair. Well, if you think about Trails End, when you go, in order to get to the swinging bridge, you have to cross another bridge by the swimming hole. And, you know, depending on what type of equipment and things, that's going to be a challenge, getting across that first bridge. And it is, you know, 100% floodplain, so we have some challenges. So anyway, we did have that inspection done last year. James is going to property, on the 13th, and, he's contacted numerous companies, but a lot of companies work in metal, they don't work in wood. So getting a quote for a repair is a bit challenging, but, so a lot of things are in the works, but, we did file an insurance claim and it is roped off. Some people have already been, submitting, applications to hunt. So I am, as I approve those, I just say you will not be, a stipulation is that they can't, access our bridge. It is much more blocked off than this now. He did put lumber up there, I just don't have any pictures of that. So that's happening there. We had our last group last weekend.
Charmaine?
Yes.
So I would assume then you're probably not gonna really have any repairs until probably next summer, if it is repaired.
One of the companies said that they could do it in November, but they haven't physically been out there. One company so far has physically been there to look at it, but they just build bridges and bring them. They don't, you know, fix and do things like that. It'll be an interesting, chat at property next Friday. Yeah, so camp is now closed. There's a lot of projects James is gonna finish up on. The 17th is a Trails End annual meeting, so we're gonna look at rates, we're gonna look at policies, talk about things like that. And then the trustees won't meet then the rest of the winter, and then they'll come back. So I think that's all I had to tell you about Trails End, unless there's any questions.
So say, anybody got any questions?
Stove working good?
Yes, Cece had made some instructions and, James had to tweak them a little bit, cause you gotta push and hold a button or something, I don't know. James is gonna talk to, Ben about, making some things easier for groups. I won't touch it, cause I have problems with propane, it'll singe eyebrows and cause explosions, so anyway,
Not good.
but, I don't cook at Trails End, so we're safe. But, you know, the groups, one of them had a lot of complaints about it being that the knobs were hot, something about you have to keep all the pilots on all at the same time, and, which makes the knobs hot. So use an oven mitt, I guess I don't know. And then some access points or something, I don't understand it. James is gonna talk to Ben, work it all out, and then what we did not realize is when we put propane in there last year, we never got a meter. So the cost of a meter is $750, so we need to decide. I promised property that I would not go over budget this year, so, once, we find out some prices on things, we may get that meter next year. But then we can start charging, the propane use there, for that, cause right now we have 2 meters, one for the showers, one if they use the furnace in Ebling Hall, and now we'll do the stove.
There's 2 different propane tanks, right? They come off the same way. How much propane does it go in the course, like, how many times you have to fill it up?
The kitchen one?
Yeah.
It was at 30% and we just filled it, so, we were able to go a complete summer.
500 gallons.
I don't know if it's 500, it might,
Smaller than that?
I would,
I'd have to look at the bill, I don't remember.
Long torpedo, short torpedo?
It's like that,
How long?
stand tall,
yeah.
What's it called?
125 gallon pig.
Oh, okay.
So you think it's a 125 gallon tank? So we bought a 63 gallon, just almost 63 gallons at what, $1.30-ish?
No, that ain't right either though, cause figure you can only fill them to 85%.
30% to 80% is half of the tank. So 62 gallons, 63 gallons. It's half of 125 gallons.
Okay.
So you're looking at $80-$90. Would we be better off just saying, if there's 120 days, whatever days we do, just a flat fee, because otherwise we're gonna spend, what, $800 to meter, $90 a year in gas.
And that's what we'll talk about, cause currently, right now, our minimum fee for propane or for gas is $1, so it'll probably go up.
The tank runs.
No, what they're
They use-
charging off of the meters.
Right, cause if you don't use the, you know, I've not charged a single group for actual well, one, a 4-H camp, it was $1.06. We don't charge a lot for propane because the dollar covers it, so, but we haven't been covering the stove, so we'll raise our minimum probably, rather than getting a tank, or a meter.
I think, yeah.
That might be easier, but yeah, our minimum fees has not changed in a very long time, and we'll talk about kilowatts and all that stuff. Our annual
The
meeting.
stove though. The first stove we had pilots, and that was an issue. That's why we switched out supposedly to this stove.
Yes, and this one
Because it
still has,
didn't have pilots.
It does not.
It was electronic start.
it doesn't have electronic ignition or something?
Why, that's what we switched out for.
He quoted off of the old quote. The whole thing is
So basically,
unfortunate
we
how
got
it
the Same
happened.
stove,
It's a much better stove.
well, it's a much better stove, but it's the same scenario as we
And
had the first time.
And then he did give a quote, that I brought here, but to get electronic ignition for 10 burners, it was over $11,000. And we did not get approved for that. So, it's pilots, they leave them on the whole time
Well,
at
yeah,
camp,
they're
shut
going
them
to,
off, and then, the next group turns them on, but that can be something James does when he checks them in, because somebody checks in every group, they don't just show up out there, so James can light the pilots and, you know, other than that, it's just turning a knob, but they stay lit, that's what's different than the other one.
Right, I get it, and
Yeah.
again, this is kind of where my issue comes in, because we specifically talked about this back when we started this venture. We all did the research, remember? And you know I remember, and you remember. This was a, you know, a pissing match, so to speak. And here we are sitting right back at the same stove. Better stove, but the same stove. We didn't get anything.
You got a stove that's gonna, you don't have to worry about it not working.
Okay.
It's a reliable stove.
But
It's a reliable stove
But
and
it's a
it's new.
liability though, based on the pilots we had all the time, and that was our thing, it was a safety issues to have them electronic, so that way we didn't have to worry about that.
Wasn't there talk about putting different kinds of knobs on that won't
Yeah,
transfer?
you can get plastic knobs,
We're working on solutions.
Yep, he just hasn't met, cause obviously the bridge is, you know,
Well, yeah.
have to close camp, turn the water off, all that stuff, and then finish up some of these projects, so, that was one on his to-do list, is to meet and finalize the stove, so. But it does work, short answer, it does work.
Is there any questions, more questions for Charmaine on Trails End?
Well, now you got my curiosity though, cause I can't remember, what was the price? The original price, was it around 5,000?
It was, I think, 2,625, but it came from out of state. You were worried that there was not going to be, service, local service, so we reached out, you thought it was too cheap. So then we reached out, to Metropolitan, and they quoted based on the other one. And we all thought it had electronic ignition, but it doesn't. So then it showed up, it wasn't the stove we wanted, so we took it back, they brought in another one, but it's still all pilots or whatever, so. And so we did get quotes, well, what would it be, you know, with the electronic, and it was over 11,000, and we had only been approved up to 5. So we were already over,
So it was more than
and
double
camp was
that.
in full swing, so it's not like we can be, you know, yanking out stoves, so.
So it was more than double actually.
Of the initial one, but who knows what we would have gotten with that one. It was just unfortunate that, that trustee member didn't realize our needs. He had a background in the restaurant business, which you leave him on all the time, you know,
It's got its
Not for
pros and
sporadic
cons,
use.
but
yeah.
in that situation.
But it baked many a pizza, and, I mean, it did its job all summer long, yeah.
Any more questions for Charmaine on Trails End? None being heard, fairgrounds report.
All right, the north end is winterized now. Last week, we had a cross-country match at the fairgrounds. I think I showed you that crazy zippity map. They loved it. They wanna come back every year now. So, if you had a chance to look at the bleacher, or the grandstand, it's beautiful. So some of the things are, wrapping up. We have one more event, which is the 8th, the fair thank you, meal, and then, we'll shut the water off on the south end. Yeah, so that's the basic report.
Did you hear anything about the seats yet, when they're coming, or, you know?
I haven't, no.
Yes.
I know Gary's been working on it and is talking to people, but I haven't been in on those conversations, so I don't know.
It was beautiful, it looks professional, it looks just like it's on television for expensive places.
Yes, it is very nice.
Did a nice job.
Will this, excuse me, will the seats be aluminum as well?
That's, yeah. And professionally installed.
That's virtually maintenance free.
Yep, just gotta clean up after users, or users have to clean up.
Anything else for the fairground, Sheriff?
No, cause it's all later in the agenda.
User agreements.
There's 2 that came in after the packet. One you'd approved, outside of committee and you'd like me to bring those back. AMVets used 7 picnic tables and 5 garbage cans. They were all returned. And then I got another one today, Alicia Gronica, she's an employee here. She's gonna be having an event next weekend and wants to rent 50 chairs and 6 plastic tables. So that's really the only one I have.
And then is there more in?
No, I didn't, they came in after that was all merged, so.
Okay.
No user grievance or anything, so once you guys set policies, well, this one you approved by email, so.
Is there any questions on the user agreements that are asking for approval?
On the one Charmaine just read.
Yeah, the 2.
Yeah, it's just equipment use, no really usage.
None being heard, is there a motion to approve?
I did already.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I ain't gonna yell, it's getting late.
Motion's made, is there a second? Seconded by Lois. Any further questions? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Policies and rates, Charmaine.
All right, this is in your packet. I'm gonna pull up a different version. I did share it with a few people. User rates, edits for 2024. Okay, so the left column is nonprofit income producing groups, and then we have like weddings, private use, things like that. So now that the multi-purpose building has concrete in it, there's some people that thought, well, maybe we should raise the rates. These rates have not been changed probably in over a decade. So I know certain members always like to review those things, so this is your annual chance to review it. I would recommend that rather than $250 per day, we just increase the security deposit to $500. And we can still keep the May. The only time I charge a security deposit typically is when it's a new group that we've not had before. Otherwise, the same groups typically come back and we've not had issues. So I was gonna change that. And then it's up to you whether you wanna change anything, but one of the recommendations was that the chuck wagon and the watering hole, they've been updated, so maybe we need to move them up into the higher category. You don't have to change your rates at all. If you look at your sheet, you don't have to change them, but if you want to, these are just recommendations. If it's too high, that's fine, but if you look at the overall, we'd be going from $330 to $500 a day, or for the other groups, your private use, things like that, $1,000 a day from $660. So keep in mind that 99% of the groups that use the fairgrounds are youth, and this committee has not charged youth. You revisit that every once in a while, but so there's only a few groups that do get charged. The dog show, the circus, dairy breakfast, farm bureau, and private use. That's pretty much the only people this would be affecting. But so much money and and improvements have been made at the fairgrounds. I think it's time to revisit this, but you don't have to.
How much percentage of private use is it?
Okay, so in this column, it would be the circus. They did not come this year.
They're typically about every other year though, ain't they?
For a while there, they were coming every year, but it was a different circus. So yeah, but we didn't have any this year. Otherwise here, that would be Farm Bureau, Dairy Breakfast, and over here is Dog Show. So Dog Show, Circus, Weddings.
That's kinda where I was going, weddings.
Yeah. And initially I thought maybe we should just increase the multi-purpose building fee for non-animal events, but I don't know.
And Farm Bureau, I mean, we bounce around.
Yeah,
We try and go to a different place in the county every year or something to patronize
Yep.
Martin County, so.
A question on the, go back to the beginning, the security deposit is $500 per day? Is that
no,
what it's
it was just a flat $250. But it was per day. That was implemented, this is how long this has not been changed with the other fair, so it would have been over 12 years ago. We charge them a security deposit, $250 every day. Unfortunately, we didn't cash your checks back then, we just held them in the safe, so. So anyway, now everything is cashed. So if there's gonna be some damage, and the reason it's $500, to be honest, is after the fair, to have a company come in and pressure wash that whole, multi-purpose building would have cost $500, so. That's how I got that number, but it can be anything, and you know, that, just because you change it to 500 doesn't mean we have to charge, if it's, but I would recommend for weddings that we do.
I don't think that's out of line, because we just went to an event, we rented the Columbus Hall, and it was $500 deposit. And once we came back in and cleaned it all up, everything was spick and span, and we got our money back. I don't think that's out of line.
I think I would be not as much worried about the cleanup out there as I am damage to stuff that is gonna come out of the maintenance budget and the fix. Well, maybe just don't cover it all, but at least it helps.
I think it's, if you got $500 of your money in the line, you're gonna be a lot more concerned than if you have a smaller.
I would agree with that also.
250 is nothing, 500 for some reason kinda gets that attention a little bit, I mean, even though.
Yep, oh, I better be careful, I better not lose a key, you know.
$500 hurts most of our budgets, right? Do you ever turn people away just because we're double booked, or how are we feeling?
At the fairgrounds, no. At Trails End, frequently.
I don't think it's out of line to raise the rates, I really don't. You're 100%. There was a lot of money spent out there to upgrade some stuff, and there's more to upgrade yet. Whether it's electricity or the buildings, I mean, there's a lot of money being spent out there.
And we do not, charge utilities, if they use a chuck wagon, that there's propane in there, so, you know,
We don't charge for that.
no. There's hardly any groups that actually get a bill for the fairgrounds, so, and, we just got the propane in there last year, so.
Big person look for another $900 meter.
I would not recommend getting a meter here.
What do you mean by moving the watering hole?
So right now, the old OLS JLO, they're at the old $55 rate, we would move them up to the 110, which we, you know, make 150. So we're just moving them up a price category is all.
That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yep, so the red would be the new prices, and, I know it does, seem like if you added up all of this, it's over $2,000, but the dog show, they just booked the entire fairgrounds, so.
And John, if you'd, I mean, the chuck wagon itself, that building is so reformed with the work that the fair did in it.
Oh, I know.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I.
They did a wonderful job in there.
They put a lot of time in that.
Mm-hmm.
That children.
these rates?
I am, but I'm just one person, so.
I'll make a motion to approve as suggested.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the rates as presented by Charmaine. Is there any further questions? Does that include still not charging youth, Jonathan?
Correct. That wasn't a change, was it?
No, that's not on here at all, no. Mm-mm.
Is there any questions on the motion on the floor? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Almost thought it's strange to have somebody talking to my side here, cause I have one all night. You got more with that chart?
No, unless you wanna talk equipment, we don't charge at all for that, or you wanna,
What?
you know, I know you wanted in the past to charge for equipment rental, and we don't, so that would be the only thing else to change.
Is it in my mailbox?
Yeah. Otherwise I can pull it up.
I was not listening exactly here. What do we have now?
Well, I think we're moving on to the Blue Hills Equestrian Pony Club.
There you go. Yes, we are.
Did you invite them? Okay, so, Gary, after the last meeting, Gary went and took pictures. And I went out there today to verify whether the stuff was removed or not. So there's, this is all like poles and flowers that they use for their jumping events. There's a bear, I'm not really sure why there's a bear, but, this is like a big bell, or maybe it's the old siren, a weather siren maybe, Terry. I don't know what that is. And then, so that's the back end, the north end, and on the other side, cause these are old changing rooms. So on the other side, you got marshmallow sticks, wood, there's some totes on this side, that, have like horse project stuff, there's a Christmas tree. After these pictures were taken, I did see Robin, cause she, told me that she canceled the last event, she got approved. And I asked her about these equipment, and she said none of it was from Flambeau Riders, and that it was Bruce Equestrian Clubs. There were some totes, I think these black totes, are horse projects, so I did, tell Kendra, if the horse project, please take them out, because the horse project has storage under, or on the north side of the concession booth. But I looked through them, it's just old cups and stuff, and probably stuff that mice have gotten into and should be thrown, especially these cake cups. Nobody should be eating those. But anyway, then when I had that conversation with Robin, she's like, well, I don't know why, you know, what I did to tick the county off. I'm like, well, you didn't, it's just maintenance went in there, cause we didn't think anybody was in there for years. We didn't know what was in there, so they broke the lock, put a new lock on there, and we see all this stuff. And some of the stuff is good, that could be used by others. I mean, this one side would be nice to have the fire pit, because our approved fire pits are on the north end. We could put some wood in there, marshmallows, whatever. It would be nice for other groups to use that. And so, anyway, she told me, she's like, well, I'll get it all out of there. Well, I went today and it's still all there, so.
You know how long ago she said that?
Huh?
How long ago did she tell you?
It was a few days after the last committee meeting,
It was almost a month ago.
so somehow she heard about it or something, so. Well, she'd taken my key, she had her horse event, and she needed to get in there, like, by the way, and change the locks, so. So, I know I was at the last meeting, so, I did not do any research calling Flambeau Riders or anybody. In my opinion, the horse project should have their own equipment, so that's a bigger issue, but if this stuff does not belong to the horse project or the county, I would recommend that they be told they need to, take it. She did say that she allows the horse project to use the stuff, but then if we're going to allow storage, then we need to start charging for it. You know, if they want this to be the pony club's building, then we need to get a contract just like the other two. But it's not their building, it is a county building, so it's a little different, but, I don't think it's right to have sole use, for one group. Those are just my thoughts.
For free.
Well, correct.
The worst part about it, and I get your point, of one group, but typically we haven't charged youth groups out there either. And it's a youth group.
It is a youth group, but we don't charge for usage. If a group, you know, wanted to come and take a building and store their stuff year round,
And, yeah,
Problem is, if you allow these people to start storing stuff for nothing, how many people are gonna be standing on the outside of that gate, what do you say? All our buildings will be full for nothing.
so Jess will be talking about an upcoming meeting where, we're gonna have some, 4-H committees get together and talk about, buildings, projects, kind of work out some kinks. Gary will be there, and, because, there's a disconnect with certain committees. For example, livestock, they're a well-oiled machine. If they want something, they buy it, they go to property and say, hey, you know, if they wanna repair a building, they do it, things like that. Horse project, the day horses came in and said, oh, we can't use these stalls, you know, they need this and that and other things, so I'm running to, you know, Menards, and Gary or Terry and, you know, maintenance are, you know, fixing these stalls on the day the
Actually,
horses are coming.
leave me out of that. Dean went, Dean and, Johnny Runstrom did a whole lot of
Yeah,
that.
so, you know, and then we're gonna be talking about dairy, but everything out there is fairgrounds, but if certain select groups want to make changes, it needs to be on them. It should not be the fairgrounds budget to eat the cost of certain improvements. So anyway, if you wanna postpone this, nobody's gonna be here all winter long until after that meeting, revisit it. Or is there anybody else that wants to, I mean, has anybody else done any research on it?
No,
Well, it's kinda hard to say, nobody's done anything because we were expecting Robin to be here
yeah.
to explain what was what with it.
Yes, and so, I asked her, she said it's all their stuff. They keep it there to allow the horse project to use it, but none of this stuff looks very pricey, you know? This could be the horse project, now they will have all winter long to prepare. If you want poles, you need to fundraise or whatever for poles. They all have their own finances, all of these committees, so
So we could say, come get your stuff.
you could tell this group, come get your stuff, and then, I would alert the horse project, hey, if you did use that stuff, it's no longer there.
Do we have to give them a date?
How long do you think?
Yeah, it's before the snow flies, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, give them 30 days, whatever you wanna do.
We already had 30 days, so that'd be 60 days.
We give them an official notice.
We didn't give them a notice to
No.
move
We
it.
gotta get an official one first.
Nope, I just had a chat with her out in the parking lot.
It sounds like she might be able to move it anyways, maybe she's looking at you
And
just.
she left me a voicemail stating, I'll have it all out next week.
Okay, so she's on that same page, so then I guess we just clarify it, send her a letter, or whatever, and give her 30 days to be done with it.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes. Second.
Second, no, Tom beat you to it, Lois.
This time.
Is there any further questions, or would you like it read back?
So by 11:05, Robin Trot.
Is that what you want to north? Blue Hills Equestrian Pony Club.
Oh, yes, the Blue Hills Equestrian Pony Club is the official name.
Any further questions on the motion on the floor? Does anybody want to read back, is it understood?
I think I understand.
Okay, the date would be what, 11/5?
Yeah, I'll send her a notice tomorrow.
No questions being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Morgan? The invoice for the bulk tank compressor. And before this starts, there is one invoice that is not in here because it was being waited on to see what happened, and that is the invoice for the compressor itself, the little L, and I do not see that here.
I didn't get that,
Yeah.
unless, did you?
I have not seen it.
You have not, to my understanding, and I would have to talk to Tim again, but to my understanding, if the dairy committee was gonna pay for this, Tim was gonna donate half of the price of that compressor. And I think the compressor, I think he told me, don't quote me, but I think he told me he paid $1,000 for the compressor.
Okay. So I guess my 2 cents on all of this, first and foremost, I mean,
Morgan, would you come on up closer, please, so
Oh.
everybody can.
sorry. Can I just sit right here?
That's fine.
So I just, when I'm reviewing the invoice, I mean, I don't know what a lot of this is, so when we bring it to our committee, I guess I want somebody else to explain it to the committee, but I don't wanna split hairs, but, so the dairy committee has funds, and I think that the kids, they fundraise all year, they should be responsible for maintenance projects like this. But where I struggle is the 4-H kids aren't the only ones that use it. I went back and looked, we didn't have any FFA kids this year. But we had 4 open class and 4 junior Ayrshires. So I mean, it's tough for me to wanna spend the kids' money, they don't have a lot, if there's not a way that we can. And I mean, 4-H is probably 2/3 of the use, but I mean, who's to say we don't have 20 FFA kids? I mean, we won't, but we could.
Who else uses it?
It's only used during the fair for milking, but it's not just 4-H kids.
At this point in time, years back, it was used for district show, this used to be District 11. And every X number of years, district show would wind up here and it was used then. I do remember setting the system up, not in the new milk house, but in the old one. There is also open class kids, I don't think there was any this year, that bring
4.
dairy animals in that use it. The only caveat to that is the milk does go to, or the price of the milk, which isn't a whole lot, believe me.
It's not, and that's where my next point is that, I mean, the kids fundraise a lot throughout the year, and the milk check is just a small portion of that, of the funds that they get. I mean, the milk check this year was $300. And I don't know what happened this year, but junior Ayrshires, it's my understanding that they are no longer going to contribute to that milk check. So is it fair that like I said, I don't wanna split hairs and be tedious, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is the kids' money, and I don't know that they should have to foot the entire bill if there's people out there not contributing to the fundraising or the milk check and still utilizing the facility either.
So if they don't contribute the milk to mulch, I mean, doesn't their milk gonna go in the same bulk tank?
No, that's, so they do not put it in there.
Well, for half of the fair they didn't, the other half they did.
And it's,
That was,
and
yeah,
they're, the Junior Ayrshire Association is a separate, it's not a 4-H entity, it's something complete, it's like FFA, just another entity, and it was very clear that they don't support 4-H and they're not going to be continuing to put the milk in the tank to support 4-H.
Just bulk tank.
Correct.
Correct.
So they put it in their own tank and dumped it or took it home or what, I don't know what they did with it, but it did not contribute to our milk check.
And that is going to be addressed by the fair, not necessarily this committee.
right.
So all the milk that goes in this bulk tank goes to the dairy committee.
Correct.
Yeah, and then, Morgan's right, I mean, it could be Junior Ayrshire, it could be the Holstein Association, it could be FFA. There's a number of different groups that can show, and their milk goes in, but as Morgan said, you know, the 4-H kids are ones that do the fundraising. They don't, these other groups don't, they come in here and use the facilities, whether it's a vacuum pump, which was just redone 2 years ago at a cost of, that was $4,000 and some odd dollars, I think, that Little L picked up.
Yep.
He completely picked up the cost, shipped the vacuum pump out, reinstalled it, reset it and everything, and.
And I do agree that the kids need to, I mean, with having fun, there's bills to pay, and I get that. I mean, but they don't have a lot of money for big expenses like this to foot the whole bill. At their expense, I guess. We could, I just don't think it's fair. But I don't know how do you calculate that too? I mean, there's no way to calculate, I mean, like I said, when I looked at numbers, there's 4 open class animals, 4 Junior Ayrshires. There was 0 FFA this year. In the past, there has been, you know, you never know. FFA is not a huge, sometimes there's 1 or 2. There was none this year, there probably won't be next year. I don't know about Holstein Association, there was nothing here this year for them.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything, so.
Well, I mean, does the entry of like open class and the other one, the Ayrshires, do they have a separate, entry fee?
No, but it all winds up.
That
going
was
to the
fair, yeah.
Not to the dairy committee, Tom.
Yes, we
I'm just
can't
saying,
charge,
maybe recoup some of that money would be to raise their entry fees.
we can't claim, entry fees, we can't charge them for open class because we don't pay premiums.
Right. And that's a state.
And I'll just leave it at that, I forgot my other thought. Oh, and Junior Ayrshires, Flambeau Riders, Bruce Hills Equestrian Pony Club, all of them pay entry fees that, if they want to fall under the junior class, and then that revenue goes to the fair.
So we got one mill that we do not have yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea what that is,
Like I said, I'm pretty sure Tim called, when Tim found a compressor, it was brand new. He said it was $1,000. Whoever he got it from wanted.
Is what Tim's expense was for it.
Yeah, and he drove to, I think the guy met him in Athens with it. He was on the road like 4.5 hours to go down and get it and bring it here. And he had stated that, you know, he was gonna charge like half of that if the dairy committee had to pay it. And Tim has
Well,
been,
he doesn't need to eat the expense again either, I mean, he's pretty much foot the bill for the whole milk house.
you know, he comes and he gives all the chemicals, he changes inflations, he sets the vacuum pump up, he provides the oil, the soap, the acid. If a pulsator goes down, he just gives the kids a pulsator, so.
And that is something the dairy committee, I mean, we made some, minor, you know, like we put mats in the parlor, the concrete in the parlor is really bad, it's heaved, it's bad, so we put mats in there, we put another tie in there. I mean, the dairy kids do a lot, and we have offered little L for, pipeline wash annually, and he doesn't even entertain to give us a bill, so.
Last year, Tim gave me a bill. I forget what all he did, but the bill is $1,100 and some dollars, and he's got written across the face of a donation to the dairy committee.
That was the milk tank.
Yeah, that's right. That 600-gallon tank that's in there, that was completely on Tim also.
So I mean, the bill is, I mean, I can't pay it today, I have to take it to the committee, our next meeting is October 20th. So I would need approval, you know, before I would write a check for it. I just don't know how do we hold some of the other clubs accountable too.
Are we able to wait till that other bill comes in?
Well, technically, this is billed to the dairy committee,
I did ask him to bill it to me, cause I didn't know what to do with it at the time, I just assumed during the fair that this was our bill, so I told him to bill it to me. Or to them, I mean, not me personally, but when I
I'll
talked
see
to
if I
him.
can find out what it is.
otherwise, we could pay it out of the fairgrounds budget, but the fairgrounds budget is already over right now, currently, in their repair line, and
Hello,
we
Tim.
offset
Tim,
dairy.
with that compressor that was put in the milk house down there, what was your bill on that compressor, Tim? Okay. Are you gonna be back there anytime soon, Tim, or not within the next? Okay, okay. When you get a chance, would you look at that and let me know, Tim? Okay, thank you. Yep. Not sure where he's at, but I can hear cattle behind him, so it's in a barn somewhere. He says he thinks it was $1,065, but he said, don't quote me on that. When he gets in the office tomorrow morning, he will look it up.
So we just under $3,000.
Another option would be to, I guess decide, do you think this is a fairgrounds expense? Or is it a fair expense? Is it a dairy project expense? And once you figure that out, you can take it to other meetings.
And guys, I am going to defer to the three of you that's here because I am so heavily involved in the fair. I don't feel it's right that and for clarification, there's two bills here because the day that they did that, which was a Saturday, of course, they did not have the right start capacitors to put in. They had some that they could get it running, considering there was, I don't know, 900,000 pounds of milk in there at the time. But I think it was roughly 3 weeks later, if I remember right, that they got the right start components in finally and then went and replaced them, so.
Yeah.
I guess, and another question too, I mean, kinda off the dairy committee, as a committee, I mean, I've been on the committee now for 4 years, and we have done like none of the maintenance or any, I mean, the milk house is locked. So we don't even know, I mean, I had no idea it was even going bad. So I guess the kids also want to.
What's that?
Nobody ever does.
And that's why it's important that we're gonna have this meeting.
Right.
But
To invite.
a compressor, I mean, when I started that this fall, that compressor run great.
Fine, right, so that's what I'm
And
saying.
then,
Yeah,
but
no.
Saturday morning when everybody milked and it kicked in, I went in to wash the pipeline and all of a sudden, this thing sounds like a 350
And
Chevy
it's
with a
only
rod
used
going
once
out,
a
you know?
year, yeah. But I mean, as far as like when the maintenance was there fixing, you know, he asked me how old it was. I didn't know if it was 1 year old or 40 years old, I had no idea.
What's that, the compressor?
Right. So I mean, I just feel like,
And Morgan,
If the
nobody
dairy
could have
committee-
answered that question because that compressor and the old bulk tank was donated when the landfill bought one of the Efforts' farms, and that's where that come from at that time. So, Tom's looking at me, 25 years ago or better, it was donated to the fairgrounds, and who knows how long it had been running in that barn at that point in time. I can remember putting a fan motor on it, and I had a bad compressor at home, so I just took the fan motor off and put it on. Other than that, I'm not sure that there was much had been done with that, other than the fact that we moved it and it was, you know, vacuumed down and charged at the time we built the new milk house, and then again when we swapped them tanks so we could get somebody to continue to pick the milk up for the kids.
I mean, I guess if you're asking my opinion, I don't think that it's the fair board's responsibility to pay the bill. I think it needs to be diverted to the people that use the compressor. I just also don't think that it's fair that that's 100% 4-H either.
Say, I'm gonna defer on this one, cause I'm so heavily involved in the fair. I don't think it's right that
I don't know that it's really a fair expense. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, yes, we use it during the fair and no other time, but I mean, the fair itself as its own entity does enough for the kids. I mean, that's a big chunk of change that takes away from all of the kids for just the dairy committee. I mean, I don't think, or the dairy project, I don't.
That's gonna be probably half the issue, by the time you take this outside to try and say, can taxpayers even pay for it? The first thing they're gonna say is, you only use it once a year, and it's only for 4 days, what's the benefit of me?
Welcome to dairy farming.
I.
I'm very adverse about dairy farming, however, then I ain't gonna go down that road, so, between the dairy committee, and I agree with the fair, with saying the fair board shouldn't be responsible for it either. But, where else we got to go then?
I mean, I guess, and I'm just asking out of curiosity, what other maintenance, I mean, are there other things that are a similar situation? Are there other mechanical things that get maintained at the fairgrounds that other people are responsible for?
Not
How
really,
does that
that's this is the one kinda oddball out, Morgan, I mean, in the dairy system itself, other than the bulk tank, Little L, or even prior to that, Urban Shirk, they did it for the kids, and they just never handed them a bill. I mean, when we built the new system, we got the one that was in the old milk house was outlawed because it had an 1.5-inch trap on it. And I thumbed around and I got, Bob's Dairy System down in, Dorchester. We found this system down there and I don't even remember what we paid for it, but boy, he give us a deal like there was no tomorrow because
So when you say we, are you talking like the fair or the county?
No, we had, when we built the milk house, we were donated $4,000 by AMPI to put that milk house together. So that $4,000 and donations is what built that new milk house. So when I say we, it was me, Dean Chesky, and Paul Hedke that thumbed around to find this stuff, or got it donated, or got reduced prices on it, or whatever to. And then the county picked up the end where it had to get plumbed into the city sewer system. But the building itself and the dairy system, all of that was done with donations of the $4,000 that AMPI donated.
What you got to say back there?
Just a quick question, and I don't know if I'm stepping over on this or not, but you said years ago they used to have an open dairy shows here.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if that pump would have failed during that show? Who would have got the bill then?
You know, at that point in time, actually probably would have went to the county, Daryl, because at that point in time, the Fair Society wasn't even in existence yet. So the county board themselves were running the fair then yet. And all of that stuff then landed on the county. I don't think the last district show that I remember being here was probably in the early to mid '80s.
Right, but you just see what I'm saying.
Right.
You know, I can see her point on this too. Definitely see her point on this. I know that anything that's placed on the fairgrounds typically belongs to the county.
That's what I was just gonna ask, where is it insured? You know, if the
It's
milk
in-
house burns down, who owns it?
The county.
So if we wanna go that route then, so then that would say all the milk would technically get a check written to the county. Then there'd be no dairy committee.
No, there could,
Well, I'm
No.
just hypothetically saying, would the milk check come back?
the milk
to the
check
county?
should, well, if they're gonna eat the expense, the county should get the milk check then.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that does anything to the dairy committee.
I
Correct.
was just hypothetically
I mean,
throwing.
the fair could get the milk check, I mean, it's just typically is
So
what it's
I
gone.
guess, how do you wanna slice it then?
Yeah. It
I
can
mean-
go,
As far as the milk check goes, I have questioned that the last couple of years, to be honest with you, because again, the milk check comes to this year it was a lot, it was $312. But, I mean, if we would've had 50 FFA kids, it would've still come to dairy committee. I mean, I don't think that that's fair either. But that's a different discussion for a different day. I don't think this is a fair expense, I don't think it's fair that the fair board pays for that. I just don't know how do you bill it to hold the other groups that use it? You know, do milk cows pay a higher entry fee or something, or, I don't know
but
what
then
that
that would
was
go to
like,
the
but-
fair, not the fairgrounds.
Right, but then the fair would be liable for paying for it. They're receiving entry fees for event at their event, or for a sub-event at their event. And so if they wanna keep that event going, they need to reinvest some of the money into that. It's not like we do the grandstands, a ton of people, different user groups throughout the course of the year use it, but this is one user group for one event. So it's different than something that everybody's using. Just like the rodeo, the fair doesn't pay the rodeo will come back. They could choose not to, they could choose to, but it's different than building a grandstand where anybody can use it, in theory, they have the right to have an event. do get the user fees for it, so they should be my opinion, on the hook for a little bit of it, and then it sounds like the dairy committee does, so I think some, between the two of them.
I think things are gonna be better once we have this meeting, and it sounds like from what Morgan said earlier, the kids want, if they had a key, maybe they could go in there, maybe they could do a work day, maybe they could do improvements such as livestock, they do a lot of improvements, maybe they wanna fix a wash rack or something, and, just be more involved, take more ownership in it, so.
What if we say,
Fairgrounds, fair, dairy,
So we're getting money.
everybody's got a bite in it then?
Where's the fairgrounds money gonna come from?
I don't know yet.
If you go that way, then you're really splitting hairs, cause then you charge FFA, junior Ayrshires.
Well then, I guess, who do we charge them? If I'm gonna split hairs, you guys don't wanna pay the full bill, but you're in a quiet way, everybody's saying the county should pay the full bill because it's their property, their building, and that's just the way it is.
Well, there's one other caveat to that, John. And that is, help me if I get this wrong, Charmaine, but somewhere in the state statutes, if we have a 4-H, this county is charged with having the grounds or whatever's needed for the 4-H to show. Yeah, you gotta look and dig it up.
Sideways.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's there. I've read it a couple times, but it's been a long time.
Well, I can tell you, 4-H does not have this money in the budget.
I would say if you go to the county and your property, you ask for more money for the fairgrounds, they're gonna convolute.
Well, the 249 fair, I mean, I just entered the fairgrounds repair bill today, and you get an alert, oh, you're over budget, and we have 3 months to go yet, so, but there are other lines, so if you look at the fairgrounds overall, which is not under this committee, it's under property, if there's leftover money in utilities or whatever, you can offset that, but that's a bad example, cause there's never money left in utilities. But maybe user fees are more than, I mean, overall, I didn't run numbers for this, cause I didn't think this was gonna.
Is there a way that fair or county or whoever pays the bill in full and then charges, okay, dairy committee gets 75% of it, or whatever. And then junior Ayrshires, like I said, there was no FFA this particular year, but there has been for the last several years.
And that's what I'm reading on. I get what you're saying. All the people in the past that have used that pump, and now it's moved down to just a small bunch. Why are they responsible? I get it. I completely understand that. But how are we gonna go back on them?
Yeah, there is no way to go back on it.
Right, so we're kinda stuck here holding the bag. And it's not fair to us or you or anybody else. I get it.
County, it is billed to dairy committee.
But if the county's paying the bill,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be.
Right, no, I understand that, yes.
How are the user fees set for the fair? Is that like something that the state regulates, or how does that go?
Not the fair.
The fair?
I mean, like entry fees and all of that, gate and all that, yeah, the fair sets those. The only thing that we're regulated, that we have a minimum on, is the amount of premiums we pay, but we can pay more than that, of course, but, yeah, that's the only.
So what if they raise their premium or entry fee or whatever it is by X amount of dollars, whatever makes sense, and then over however we expect a lifetime of that system, and that's kinda our way to pay for it.
Charmaine, can you tell how much entry fees are?
50 cents a class.
There you go.
I was hoping that was gonna come up.
We're not talking a lot of money,
No.
just so you know.
So entry fee is 50 cents.
Per
If you raise
class.
it to $1, over time, you can pay for get your maintenance fund for fair events.
We used to charge stall fees, in addition to entry fees, but then found out we can only charge a certain amount of fees up to, it can't be more than 10% of what they would get in the premium. So then the fair just did away with that, but now that rule has changed in DATCAP, and so we could charge more, but or we could just up dairy committee's fees.
I was just gonna say, or dairy, I mean, the milk cow, I mean, cause a calf, obviously is not gonna use the parlor, but is there a way that again, different conversation for different day, I guess, but is there a way that you could charge a milking class more than 50 cents? Maybe they're $5.
Yes, it's just really hard, to keep those things separate, and then what if, the horse arena needs a charge? Are we then going to up the rates for horse? I mean, I just don't know that you wanna go down that road.
No.
Either the whole fairgrounds or the whole fair or whatever pays this, and then if committees reimburse the county, you know. The easiest thing is to have the fairgrounds pay it, but, it is over $1,600, it has to go to property,
When's it due? The 27th?
30 days, let's see, we just got it, what, 9/27?
27th.
So October. It's due before the next time we meet.
It's exclusively for the fair event, so I think that the
You
fair
can do it with pending, you can do it.
should pay for it.
They've
And
done
they can
that.
raise their fees if they want, honestly, if they should raise that 50 cents, seems really cheap, I don't know if they're low fees at the fair, but if you've doubled your fees and start putting that money towards future items that are exclusive fair event items, not fairgrounds items, then you can start building yourself a pool. You guys know more about the fair than I do.
I mean, it's a good idea, but if it's difficult on the fair end to keep track of different amounts of entry fees, then
Why
I
don't you
guess.
do everything the same, so then it just goes.
But where I would caution that, there's a lot of little kids that enter in a lot of art projects, and that there are families that would not be able to afford $50 in entry fees. If that was the case, I mean, if you have 5 kids that do 5 art
yeah,
projects.
there's some kids that literally do every,
Yeah, and I do
every
know.
available thing in the fair book.
The bad part about this is any which way, I'm gonna say it right out, any which way the county don't look at this or find a way to pick this up, you're charging the kids that we're asking to be a part of our fair.
Whether it's
Yeah.
taxes or fees, right? I mean,
Well, and I know families that come in here with 4 and 5 kids, and previous to some of these prices getting adjusted, they couldn't come because of the entry fees even to get into the fairgrounds, they couldn't afford it. And
but say they have 5 kids, they all wanna do one event, that's $5, I think most people could swing $5.
what do you mean $5?
If we raise it to $1 entry and they have 5 kids, then they all do one entry.
Oh, it's 50 cents per entry, so if you do a Lego, you do crocheting, you do, it adds up.
Not to mention, now you pay a gate fee, Jonathan, depending on what you got there. If you do have some kind of a animal there, you drive to the fairgrounds every day to take care of them animals, or in some instances, twice a day. It adds up dramatically.
I'll give you, I mean, for my family of 5, and I mean, we camp and do the rodeo and everything, but we spent like $800 on the fair. But that's with 3 kids.
So
having
entry
entries
fees
and- yeah, I
For
mean,
this year, we're $550, and here's your comparable of the last 3 years, to that.
And the sad part about it, I guess, we're trying to grow this fair and make it better. The more we charge, the more we seem to cut our own throat in it, and the previous group had went through that, as Charmaine can probably attest to.
So how was the revenue for the fair this year? The more you go, the more revenue you have, so maybe eating a $19 or $2,000 bill to keep the fair growing.
The The dairy project though is probably not, I mean, the dairy project does not bring the fair any revenue.
No, but collectively, by the fair, all the events together is why people come to the fair, right? So the more events they have, the more they go.
We find donations with that fair.
Yeah, I mean, if the dairy show itself, I would probably guarantee you that there's not a lot of outside public that come to watch it. It's not like the livestock show or the rodeo. I mean, the people that are there to watch the dairy show are the parents of the kids that have cows there.
And I would probably also add to that, if you really sat down and crunched the numbers, I would bet you the dairy show actually costs the fair money.
Probably.
But it's there because there's still kids that wanna be involved in that dairy show.
And our dairy show is, I mean, so we had 5 families. So it's really, I mean, it literally is 5 families that are in 4-H. So those 5 families are the ones that did like the bake sale, the silent auction. I mean, so their silent auction funding, their fundraising for the year is what's gonna pay for that. But I mean, and that's where I just struggle with the sense that they have to pay all of it. Because junior Ayrshires were there, and we had open class kids that were there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I think the fair itself should put this on the bill, because it is an event exclusively for them. And no, I mean, there's no good way to do this, somebody's gonna have to pay the money, it's gonna either come from taxpayers who are trying to support their kids, or it's gonna come from kids fundraising, or back in the day, they went to local businesses and got donations or whatever for the equipment. The bottom line is it sucks, it's a $3,000 bill, no one likes a $3,000 bill.
They do, well, they have their own group, but it's not like a 4-H chartered club where they have, you know, I have no idea if they have a bank account or what, but all you really need to do is come to this committee and say, hey, we have an educational program, and as long as this committee says it's good, you can show at the fair and receive premiums, that's it.
I can guarantee you're not gonna get 1 red cent on junior Ayrshire.
Can you say that if you're gonna use our equipment, your mouth goes in our ball tank?
That has already been done.
Yep, the fair needs to deal with that and has dealt with that. Right, that was voted on last month?
Yeah.
Last meeting? So you could just forward this to property and, you know, it has to go there if you're expecting the, either the fair or the fairgrounds to pay it.
Can we table this until I bring this to our dairy committee meeting?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
When is that?
The 20th.
Probably
And I
not, if
can't-
it's due on the 27th, it should, I agree with Charmaine, I think.
Have, did it come out of fairgrounds and then reimburse through?
Yes.
That's what I would do, and then.
Yeah, because technically this is a finance bill, which would go next Thursday. But with this dollar amount, they're gonna want property, but Connie said that they can approve it pending property approval, but, cause the checks don't get cut until that following day anyway.
Right, and you can call Tony to get the approval.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, you'll be fine.
And then just have the other entities throw it on their future agendas and.
So why would we pay for that? The county already paid for it.
No, they're not gonna.
It's gotta be devil's advocate, no?
You making a motion, John? Motion's been made, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Kudo. Is there any further questions or comments on the motion on the floor? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion does carry.
But thank you for your time and the insight, we do appreciate
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Sorry, I couldn't be more clear. I
Yep.
guess I don't, so when's the next property meeting?
Morgan, if you want some,
Next Friday, yeah.
some clarification, when you get in your meeting on what happened there, call me. If I gotta do it on speakerphone, I will. If I can and you want me to come, I mean, I dealt with it from the minute it started until the minute it ended that day, so.
I just don't know, I mean, like Heckers, I feel like they're gonna ask a lot of questions and I will not know the answer to them.
I mean,
So,
I can answer everything I can answer, I mean, it was nobody's fault, it was nothing. We have no idea how old that compressor was and it finally went kaput, so.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fair Board report, current year budget.
I'll do the report first. We had our meeting on the 24th. We decided to do another 2-day rodeo, 2024. We're having our volunteer picnic this Sunday. The wrap up for our volunteers, that was already mentioned, that'll be on Zoom at the fairgrounds. We have the Wisconsin Association of Fairs Conventions coming up in January, and a bunch of the board members are planning to go and attend that. We can register early bird, which is $50, I believe, versus $75 after on November 15th, so we're going to get our numbers here together, meeting who's all gonna go for that, and I'll let you know the next meeting. Shar mentioned we're gonna have a meeting on the 15th of October on Sunday at 6 o'clock. I'll send an email out, or Charmaine will send an email out with me, to all the committees inviting, whoever would like to come to that, to talk about buildings or equipment that, on the, kind of the north end of the fairgrounds mostly, kind of a wish list, similar to what Andy did, if any of you remember that a few years ago. We're gonna kind of go off of that model and then prioritize what does need to be done. Again, who's gonna help, what committees can help, so we don't run into the situation like we did with the horse at the fair, where then all of a sudden, they need these doors and whatever else, and we're supposed to find hinges and whatnot, right now, cause horses are coming in 2 hours, and that was very unrealistic, so we need to be a little ahead of the game, and that's on some of those users, so that's where we need the users to come to this meeting and just tell us what they think they want or need, and then we'll probably go off the needs list, of course, first, but, some of that you'll probably hear come back, obviously, to the committees. We'll have to go to property and whatnot, but we're early enough, we need to have a plan, and it takes a long time to get things approved, going through all the different steps, so, we figured we'd do our first thing the 15th, see where it goes from there. So if any of you would like to come, feel free to join us right here. I don't think I have anything else really to report, I think we're good there.
Not that's not later on the agenda.
Yeah, we do have we approved one contract, which you'll see. Otherwise, rodeo contract isn't completed yet, I'll get that, so hopefully next meeting you guys will have that. We just wanna make some again next year, so it's gonna take me a little bit to get all of that, to get a new contract. I have one with the new basic prices, but we're gonna add some different stuff, so that may change. My opinion, just so you know, for what it's worth, I understand that going back just real quickly to the dairy thing. Once the bill's paid, I'll put this on our agenda also to talk about next month, so that Fair understands. I hear Jonathan and I am very torn, as a fair, because I agree it does happen at our fair, but I can tell you, dairy is an expense every year, because I personally have paid thousands of dollars towards that dairy place, whatever you call it, milking parlor, whatever it's called. I know nothing about dairy, and my husband and I have paid many bills over the last few years that haven't gone to anyone. So I do agree that this is a fair thing, but something else needs to be done, because there isn't enough, they don't bring in any income, and raising fees isn't the answer. You're gonna hear that, the fair's not gonna agree with that. I can about guarantee it, that's gonna be really super hard to track, and we don't have a lot of dairy kids anyway. So you're getting huge bills for very few kids that show dairy. Now, when you talk a unit at your house for air conditioning or in this building is completely different. You can't just hire anyone to work on a bulk tank. That's the other kicker. So there's very few companies that will work on bulk tanks, and the only reason this company will work on it is because of me. And I can tell you that because it's my husband's. They don't work on bulk tanks at farms. They're not paid. You're calling Joe's out of Whitney, most likely that's gonna be your closest. That's gonna come do this. Lolo can't. There's certain parts he can do of it, other parts he can't. So you have to have people that have the correct licenses to work on this system, these units. So that's where it's, there's more to this picture, I guess, than what was presented, so I just kinda wanna let you guys know that we as the fair too need to talk about this, because every year it's high hundreds into the thousands every year, just to let them have cows and milk at the fair. So, those bills haven't been brought out to you guys, so, anyway, just, I guess, a little bit more info on that for you to have in the back of your mind. I will be for the fair paying for it this year, and I will do that just to put this behind us, but we need to make some changes going forward. I think that's all I have for now. So, do you wanna talk budget more?
It's all in the breakdown that you would have received. Currently, expenses are at $161,798.10. Revenue is at $206,046.37. So it looks like right now we're sitting on $44,000. Yet in our budget, we have a whole quarter to go. Granted, we're not going to have huge expenses in those 3 quarters. But yes, the budget, when we did the budget, we predicted, I believe, $19,000 would go into the non-lapsing account. Or $17,946, I guess, is what we predicted, so.
Bylaws?
So the only thing that's changed here is section 8. So it will read, attendance at meetings is expected. Any board member that misses 3 meetings may be removed from the board. This whole prior communication, just got a little crazy with, okay, who do they communicate that to? And can you just say, oh, I'm not gonna be at the meeting, and then miss majority of the meeting? Well, how productive are you as a fair board member? So just toughening that up a little bit.
So that's 3 meetings forever, per year, or?
Per year.
So we have that under that, or is that stated somewhere else?
It doesn't, we review these bylaws every year, so at the annual meeting of which we just had, but, I could throw that on there. I know we did talk about, is it consecutive, is it, it was.
I mean, that's a lot of meetings per year, right? That's a big chunk here, so. I'm okay happy with that, I just think if we add that, misses 3 meetings per year, and then remove the rest of that you already have struck out.
Okay.
Remove, add, so do exactly what she has, except under the, behind the misses 3 meetings per year. So that it's defined. Now
Do
maybe.
you want a calendar year, do you want it,
Should be a fair year.
well, our annual meeting's in October, so. Okay. So how do I say that?
Fiscal year.
Choices.
Okay.
Are there any other changes?
That's it.
That's it. Any questions? All in favor, signify, well, I guess is there a motion to approve the bylaws?
I think I made a motion to approve with the change.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded to approve the bylaws with the one change. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One contract, is that it, Jeff?
We actually have two very exciting ones. Gizmo, the fair wants Gizmo to come back, same price too, so we did get a reduced price by, fair convention and all that, so, Gizmo the robot coming back for $3,000. We had him 3 days, and then the other one is Half Twisted Half Not. He was our balloon artist, and he charged the same rate as this year, $1,250. So those are the two contracts we have.
Entertain a motion to approve the two fair contracts that are presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Tom Kudo, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jonathan. Any further questions? None being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Contracts are approved. 3-year terms, our terms are staggered on the fair board. Are them the only two that are up, Jess?
Yep, and then we had one person step down.
Okay.
Just on the list.
I'll make a motion to approve both terms.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine. Motion's been moved to approve Jessica Wiles for a 3-year term and Nancy Burmeister for a 3-year term. Is there a second? Seconded by John Caleb. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You can back up now. Sure you know what you're doing?
Just so you guys know, Cassie Barron did step down, so she's not on the fair board anymore.
Cassie Barron,
Connie, have you got a separate copy for us?
did anybody have any questions on any of them?
I didn't get a chance to look at it on the email, so I'm reading right now.
I think she printed them separately, there should be
Yeah.
5.
This is getting close to the end.
You'll have quite the lengthy bill report next time too. It's just catching up with all the food bills. I just entered a whole slew of those, but the majority, yeah, you won't get anything like the last 2 times. dash half knot, KNOT.
I'm working on it.
I know.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
Hold on, I got a question. What were the banquet table?
Those are those nice white tables. If you go in the tin building, we use a ton of tables to put everything on. You know, we have the lattice on the walls and then we have tables all the way around. Plus we use tables all over the fairgrounds. And last year, it was like musical tables. We just didn't have enough. We still ran out of tables this year because we need 2 down by the mud bog. Hey, we need 2 for the livestock auction. Hey, we need 2 for this and that. And, you know, the more events you have, the more tables you need. So we got some that fold in half that you can just throw in an SUV or UTV, and other big ones that just stay in the timber. So, and the fair purchased those.
So we have more than enough on hand.
I did buy a few more after that too, because there was a smoking deal and 11%, you know, off, so. I got a few more, cause we still ran out, even with all those tables. But you know, we can't tear down any tables until after Sunday, you know, cause we have exhibits, so. We had to have some spares that we could run here, there, and everywhere.
Okay, Dr. Ryder.
But I don't have carpal tunnel on you too.
No, I just come from a different era. Like,
Your last name was after
Yeah, that's very true.
I would entertain a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Made by Jonathan, second by John Boodle. Is there any more questions? Not being heard, all in favor signify by aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. November 1st.
Election day?
Not on Wednesday.
Oh, cause we moved it. We used to always have committee on election day, but now we moved it to Wednesday, disregard.
We don't have elections.
Oh, okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second
All in favor signify by aye.
that. Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Huh? He was sleeping.
You missed out.
I missed it.